Chapter 1285. Splash! A monster targeted Lu Ming and bit at Lu Ming's head. The dragon power in Lu Ming's body burst out, and his left hand used the devouring power to envelop the monster. The fingers of his right hand lengthened and turned into dragon claws. Pft! Lu Ming grabbed the monster's head with his right hand and tore it off with all his might. Blood gushed out, but it was all devoured by Lu Ming's devouring power. What a rich blood essence, and the demonic power in it is even more astonishing. After devouring the monster's blood essence and demonic power, Lu Ming was secretly shocked. This monster was also a type of demonic beast, but the demonic power in its body was astonishing. The blood essence in its blood essence was also extremely rich, far surpassing that of ordinary human martial artists. However, Lu Ming's current cultivation had reached a bottleneck. After devouring and refining, it was not of much help to him. Kill! 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 Deep in the sea, a fierce battle broke out. Although the dozens of underwater monsters were powerful, they were still easily killed by the human race's supreme martial artist. In the end, dozens of humans died, but the dozens of monsters were killed one by one. Next, everyone continued to dive, but they were even more cautious. Sure enough, not long after, they were attacked again. It was a strange fish. Its body was not big, and it looked exactly like a stone. Even its aura was like a stone, as if it was lifeless. However, when Lu Ming and the others approached, the stone-like fish suddenly launched an attack. This fish was not particularly strong, but there were many of them, and they were highly poisonous. If a perfected spirit god was bitten by this fish, he would be severely poisoned and paralyzed, unable to fight back. In this battle, dozens of powerhouses died. In the end, they relied on the powerful strength of the Supremes to kill the stone-like fish. However, no one retreated. The temptation of a pure spirit body was too great. Since they had come this far, no one wanted to return empty-handed. Everyone continued to dive. In total, they had dived 300,000 meters into the sea. The water pressure here was simply unimaginable. Moreover, it was pitch black. With Lu Ming's vision, he could only see within 1,000 meters. The others might be able to see even closer. It's the end, someone said. Everyone relaxed. They had finally reached the bottom. Was the pure spirit body cultivation method here? Look, there's a crack. Suddenly, someone shouted. Everyone hurriedly gathered over, and sure enough, they found a crack. It seemed to be a spatial passage. This is a spatial tunnel. The cultivation method of the pure spirit body must be hidden inside. This thought appeared in everyone's mind, and their eyes couldn't help but become fiery. Just as someone was about to charge in, the seawater in the distance churned, and a furious roar rang out. How dare you invade my ancestral land? All of you must die. The loud roar was like a dragon's roar, rumbling through the rolling seawater. Then, everyone saw a large group of black behemoths rushing towards them. Demonic beasts, all of them were demonic beasts, and they were all marine demonic beasts. Lu Ming saw huge octopuses, ferocious sharks, and slender eels. The one in the lead was covered in black scales, had dragon horns, and had 4 claws under its belly. It was a flood dragon. It was a black flood dragon. Moreover, the flood dragon had a strong true dragon's aura. It obviously contained a rich true dragon's bloodline. The terrifying aura was enough to make people tremble even if they were far away. Supreme Being, that flood dragon is a Supreme Being expert, and it contains 90% of the true dragon's bloodline. Lu Ming's pupils shrank slightly. A flood dragon with 90% of the true dragon's bloodline was absolutely terrifying. Behind the flood dragon, there were many marine demonic beasts with terrifying auras. Many of them were Supreme Being experts. Not good, retreat. Charge into the spatial tunnel. Many human experts screamed in horror and turned around to charge into the spatial tunnel. You're courting death. The flood dragon roared, and a black dragon claw stretched out. It grew rapidly and clawed at the human experts. Puff! Huff! In an instant, more than 10 high-level spiritual god experts were crushed by the dragon claw. Their bodies and souls were annihilated. Whoosh! The dragon claw didn't stop, and it went for a Supreme Being expert. That Supreme Being expert's face changed. A snow-white saber appeared in his hand, and the saber light was shocking. It broke through the seawater and slashed at the dragon claw. With a loud bang, the saber light shattered. That Supreme Being expert's body shook violently. His face paled, and he vomited blood as he was sent flying. The difference was too big. Even though they were both Supreme Being experts, the Flood Dragon was no match for the human experts. They were at the bottom of the sea, and the Flood Dragon had an advantage. Moreover, the Flood Dragon had 90% of the true dragon's bloodline, and it was the same as the human experts who had awakened a Grade 9 High God Realm bloodline. He was a genius among geniuses. At this time, some human experts had already charged into the spatial tunnel and disappeared. Kill them all. Seeing this, the Flood Dragon became even more furious. He roared again and again, and his dragon claw slashed out. Rip! Space was torn apart, and seawater flowed into the spatial crack and disappeared. A dragon claw grabbed at Hai Tian and the others. Protect the young master. At the edge of the sea, several supreme beings roared and attacked the black dragon claw together. Boom! 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 The terrifying attack evaporated more than 10,000 tons of seawater, creating a vacuum. Several supreme beings joined forces to block the black dragon claw. There are so many experts. Die! Hai Tian and the others attracted the attention of the black flood dragon. It stared coldly at Hai Tian and the others. It let out a dragon roar and pounced towards them. At the same time, several supreme being marine monsters followed the flood dragon and pounced towards Hai Tian and the others. The marine monsters had the advantage under the sea. Now that several supreme beings joined forces, their power was shocking. Hai Tian's face changed drastically, and he was extremely frightened. Boom! Boom! Several supreme beings joined forces, but they were still unable to stop the flood dragon and were sent flying. Big brother, save me! Hai Tian screamed in fear. Rip! Hai Yu stepped out and appeared beside Hai Tian. He activated his embryonic domain, and a huge battle axe appeared in his hand. He swung the axe. Clang! The axe collided with the black flood dragon's claw, and a shocking force was released. The force formed a storm that swept out, and some of the weaker supreme beings could not stand steadily. Hai Yu was also in existence who had awakened a level 9 divine bloodline. His battle strength was shocking, and he was not weaker than the flood dragon. Even at the bottom of the sea, he was not much weaker. When the two collided, the flood dragon and Hai Yu's bodies shook slightly, and they retreated a few steps. There's actually an expert like you, but this is the bottom of the sea. Stay here. The black flood dragon roared and attacked Hai Yu. Bring Hai Tian into the spatial tunnel. I'll block them. Hai Yu ordered the other supreme beings, and then used bloodline fusion to fight the flood dragon. Splash! Chapter 1286. They were more than 300,000 meters deep at the bottom of the sea. An ordinary spiritual god would probably be crushed to death by the seawater, not to mention stirring the seawater. However, the battle between Hai Yu and the Flood Dragon Supreme could actually stir the seawater within a radius of tens of thousands of meters. It was obvious how terrifying their combat strength was. In the blink of an eye, they had exchanged more than 10 moves. Is this the power of a 9th grade divine rank bloodline and a 90% divine beast bloodline? Their strength is indeed shocking. Lu Ming mixed in the crowd and casually fought with a demon beast. However, his gaze was fixed on the battle between Hai Yu and the Flood Dragon Supreme. Lu Ming was rather solemn at the combat power of the duo. Lu Ming felt that even if he unleashed his full strength now, he would probably not be a match for Hai Yu or the Flood Dragon Supreme. The main reason was that his cultivation was too far away from theirs. If his cultivation broke through to the perfection stage of the spiritual God realm, he was confident that he could fight and even suppress them. But now, he was still a little short. The gap between the ninth level of the spiritual God realm to the perfection stage of the spiritual God realm and the spirit God realm to the sovereign realm was getting bigger and bigger. It was too difficult to surmount. With Lu Ming's current combat strength, it was more than enough to deal with or even suppress those sovereigns who had awakened a 6th grade divine rank bloodline. However, they were only the most ordinary sovereigns. The higher their bloodline, the stronger their combat strength, and the more difficult it would be to deal with them. Let's go. After watching for a while, Lu Ming had a rough understanding of Hai Yu and the Flood Dragon Supreme's strength. Then, he casually killed a sea demon at the perfection stage of the spiritual God realm and followed the crowd into the spatial tunnel. The space changed. In the next moment, Lu Ming felt the pressure around him lighten, and the true yuan in his body circulated quickly. There's no seawater here, nor is there any pressure from the seawater. This was Lu Ming's first reaction. Then, Lu Ming looked around. At this moment, he was standing in the void. He could clearly see that there was seawater all around him, but it was separated by a layer of transparent material that kept the seawater outside. It was the same in all directions. There seemed to be a layer of restriction that kept the seawater out. There was a spatial rift in the sky. It was the spatial tunnel. Lu Ming and the others had come in through that spatial tunnel. That is, an ancient city. Then, Lu Ming looked ahead. This area was completely occupied by a vast ancient city. An ancient city stood in front of them. It was filled with an ancient aura, as if it had crossed over from the ancient era. The ancient city was vast. At a glance, one could see that it stretched for hundreds of thousands of li. To think that there was such an ancient city hidden at a depth of more than 300,000 meters under the sea. At this moment, some people were already flying towards the ancient city. Clearly, this ancient city was very likely their final destination. The pure spirit body technique was very likely to be hidden in this ancient city. However, Lu Ming saw a strange scene. When some people flew above the ancient city, it was as if they could not fly, or they were affected by a powerful gravitational force. They could not stay in the air and quickly descended into the ancient city. It seems like you can't fly in this ancient city. Lu Ming's heart stirred. Wang! Suddenly, the space around Lu Ming trembled, and several figures appeared. Hai Yu, one of them was Hai Yu. Most of the remaining ones were sea monsters, such as the Flood Dragon Sovereign. Kill! The moment the Flood Dragon Sovereign appeared, he wanted to kill Hai Yu. However, Hai Yu was not in the mood to fight. He took a step forward and flew towards the ancient city. Lu Ming did not hesitate either. He used his movement technique and flew towards the ancient city. Kill all these humans. The Flood Dragon Sovereign ordered and chased after the ancient city with the sea monsters. When Lu Ming flew above the ancient city, there was indeed an extremely powerful gravitational force. Even with Lu Ming's cultivation, it was difficult for him to maintain flight. He could not help but fall below the ancient city. Lu Ming landed on a street in the ancient city. Hai Yu and the others landed on another street. As soon as he landed on the street, Lu Ming's expression changed slightly. At this moment, he felt the bloodline of the prison-suppressing monument trembling slightly. Lu Ming realized that when he stepped on the ground, he seemed to be able to fuse with the earth with the help of the bloodline of the prison-suppressing monument. At this moment, he felt that the earth concept seemed to be restless, as if it could break through at any time. This ancient city is 300,000 meters below the sea. It's close to the earth's core. When I step on the ground here, it resonates with the earth. I can clearly sense the earth concept. Touch! Lu Ming thought in his heart and guessed the general reason. Perhaps this is an opportunity for me to break through to the peak of the 4th level of the earth concept. Lu Ming's eyes were filled with anticipation. If his earth concept broke through to the peak of the 4th level, Lu Ming could continue to devour and refine origin stones and break through to the peak of the spirit god realm. Then, the next step would be to comprehend the embryonic form of the domain and break through to the sovereign realm. Boom! Boom! Not far away, there was a rumbling sound. It was obvious that someone was fighting. Let's go. Even if there is a pure spiritual body cultivation technique, it must be in the depths of the ancient city. Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. He took a step forward and rushed towards the depths of the ancient city. Ah! Suddenly, a shrill scream came from in front of Lu Ming. Could it be that someone is killing each other? Lu Ming raised his eyebrows and continued to move forward. Ah! Not long after, another shrill scream rang out. The scream contained despair and terror, and it caused one's entire body to go cold. It doesn't sound like the scream of someone killing each other. Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. He couldn't help but be careful. He also slowed down his speed. Hoo! Suddenly, Lu Ming felt a chilly wind blowing on his body, making his hair stand on end. Be careful! Dandan suddenly warned. At the same time, Lu Ming also felt a cold aura approaching him from behind. Lu Ming suddenly turned around and threw out a punch. Boom! The fist energy pierced through the space and a pitch-black space tunnel appeared. However, there was nothing. Lu Ming didn't see anything or any living thing. However, at this moment, Lu Ming felt a cold aura on his neck that was getting closer to him. Swoosh! Lu Ming's palm was like a blade. He slashed out horizontally and swept in all directions. However, when his palm swept across, it was still empty. There was nothing. What the hell is this? Dandan, did you notice? Lu Ming frowned and looked around carefully, but he still found nothing. I didn't notice it either, Lu Ming. This place is very strange. It should be the residence of a powerful existence. Dandan said. You don't have to tell me that. Lu Ming curled his lips. To be able to move an ancient city to a place 300,000 meters deep under the sea, even an ordinary emperor couldn't do it. Only a terrifying existence could do it. How could the residents of such a powerhouse be ordinary? Ah! At this moment, another scream came from ahead. It was extremely shrill. Who cares what it is? Since it doesn't dare to appear, I'll continue forward. Lu Ming's eyes were bright. The dragon power in his body erupted. He was ready to fight at any time and stepped forward. In the ancient city, screams could be heard from time to time. What the hell is this? Get out here. Chapter 1287. But there was nothing. Some of the weaker cultivators were trembling in fear, feeling like they were going crazy. Whoosh whoosh, gusts of cold wind blew in the ancient city. Humph, trying to mystify us. Some of the Supreme Being experts snorted coldly. They covered their bodies with true essence and strode forward, passing through the streets. Lu Ming also strode forward, but strangely, Lu Ming did not see a single corpse along the way. Screams could be heard from time to time, but not a single corpse could be seen. Lu Ming could not help but look at the mansions and palaces on both sides of the street. The doors of these palaces were tightly shut, and they were full of mystery. Whoosh! Lu Ming took a step and rushed up the high wall of one of the palaces, looking inside. At one glance, Lu Ming raised his eyebrows. Inside the palaces was a small courtyard, and the courtyard was filled with skeletons. There was also a corpse lying in the courtyard. Its eyes were wide open, and there was still fear in them, but there was no sign of life. As expected, there is something wrong with these palaces. Lu Ming looked at the door in front of the courtyard. The door was open, and it was dark inside. He could not see what was going on, as if a terrifying demon was hiding inside. Hell suppressing heaven skill. Suddenly, Lu Ming roared and punched the air in front of him. Because at this moment, Lu Ming felt a dangerous aura descending. Boom! A phantom of the hell-suppressing monument appeared in Lu Ming's palm, as if it could suppress everything. The space trembled, and a black phantom appeared in front of Lu Ming. It seemed to be suppressed by the power of the hell-suppressing monument, and it was rapidly twisting. This is... Lu Ming's eyes were filled with surprise. This was a black shadow that did not seem to have a physical body. It was just a phantom with a ferocious face. Under the power of the hell-suppressing monument, it was twisting crazily, and it was even screaming. The black shadow twisted and screamed, as if it wanted to pounce on Lu Ming. Resentment, this is resentment. Dandan said with a frown on her face. What is resentment? Lu Ming asked. According to my conjecture, the owner of this ancient city must have died with extreme unwillingness. His cultivation base was extremely high, and before he died, he produced a terrifying amount of resentment. After that, there were people who came after him who were killed by his resentment, resulting in even more resentment. These resentment are all incomparably terrifying and formless, making them extremely difficult to kill. Dandan explained. There's actually such a strange thing in this world. Lu Ming frowned. He increased the power of the suppressing hell skill, and the suppressing hell monument trembled. The black shadow twisted and then collapsed. He's not that strong. Lu Ming pursed his lips. Lu Ming, don't be so smug. That's because you have the bloodline of the prison-suppressing steel, and you obtained a fragment of it. The prison-suppressing steel can suppress everything, especially evil things. That's why you were able to suppress and kill it. If you used other methods, it would be very difficult to kill a wisp of resentment. Dandan glanced at Lu Ming in disdain. I see. Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. Lu Ming, you have to be careful. That wisp of resentment was produced by someone who came after him. If you encounter the resentment produced by the owner of this place, it won't be so easy to deal with it. Dandan warned. Lu Ming nodded. He did not stop here and continued to walk deeper into the ancient city. From time to time, he could hear miserable screams. Such a strange thing made many people afraid. Many experts gathered together, helping each other and working together. This way, the situation was much better, and there were fewer miserable screams. The group continued forward and soon reached the center of the ancient city. In the center of the ancient city, there was a large group of palaces. It was like a palace, and there were countless palaces. Buzz! At this moment, a beam of light shot out from the depths of the palaces. Everyone saw a jade talisman in the beam of light. Could that be the cultivation method of a pure spirit body? Many people's eyes lit up. It must be, it must be. The cultivation method of a pure spirit body is mine. Get lost, it's mine. Many people's eyes were burning with passion as they rushed in the direction of the palaces. Ha ha ha, the pure spirit body is mine in the end. An old man in a black robe had a greedy look in his eyes. He had been waiting for this day for a long time. He was the one who distributed all the maps. His goal was to find the cultivation method of a pure spirit body. Whoosh! With a flicker of his body, he scuttled out like a ghost. The cultivation method of a pure spirit body belongs to the Sea Conqueror's residence. Hai Tian, Hai Yu, and the others also rushed madly into the palaces. The treasures of the ancestral land belong to the Sea Demon clan. Flood Dragon Prime roared and led the experts of the Sea Demon clan into the depths of the palaces. Lu Ming did not rush in immediately. Lu Ming, you have to be careful. The resentment in the palaces is very strong. It's very scary. Dandan said. Lu Ming nodded. He followed behind everyone and dashed in slowly. Ah! Sure enough, many people rushed into the palaces and let out miserable screams. What the hell is that? Kill! Kill! The group of palaces was in a mess. The fledgling domain is useful against it. Kill it with the fledgling domain. A supreme being shouted. Lu Ming saw a supreme being using the fledgling domain to cover an area. In the fledgling domain, the black shadow formed by the resentment appeared and was finally destroyed by the fledgling domain. After discovering this secret, the supreme beings used the fledgling domain to cover an area and destroy the resentment. In an instant, the situation reversed. Many supreme beings rushed towards the jade token. Lu Ming followed behind and did not act rashly. "It's mine." Among the palaces, an old man in a black robe was the fastest. He flashed like a ghost and was the first to approach the jade token. He tapped his foot on one of the palaces and soared into the sky, grabbing the jade pendant. "How dare you? You're courting death." "Hi," you shouted. "Get lost." Supreme Being Flood Dragon also roared. The other Supreme Beings also rushed over. "Ah, I was the one who distributed the map. The cultivation method of the pure spirit body belongs to me." The old man in the black robe laughed, and a terrifying aura spread out from his body. There was no doubt that the old man in the black robe was a Supreme Being. Moreover, he was not an ordinary Supreme Being. The bloodline that he had awakened was definitely not weak. The old man in the black robe was about to grab the jade token. At this moment, the old man in the black robe suddenly widened his eyes and revealed a look of shock. In the end, he roared angrily, "Get out of here, get out! Ah, get out of here!" Then, the old man in the black robe let out a shrill roar. The power in his body erupted crazily. Some of the palaces in the ancient city collapsed and turned into dust under this power. What's going on? Many people were shocked and could not help but stop in their tracks, not daring to go forward. Chapter 1288. It was obvious that the black-robed old man had suffered a terrifying attack. Judging from the strength that the black-robed old man had, it was definitely terrifying. He was close to Hai Yu and Flood Dragon Supreme. However, even with such strength, he was still in a miserable state. The black-robed old man shouted as he tumbled in the air, attacking randomly. Then, everyone was shocked to find that the black-robed old man's body was shriveling, as if the vitality in his body was slowly disappearing. At the same time, a black shadow appeared around the black-robed old man's body. It was twisted and ferocious. It was that kind of resentment. "It's that damn thing again. Why is this one so strong? What the hell is that?" Someone's voice trembled. Squeak squeak, the black shadow let out an ear-piercing sound and suddenly drilled into the black-robed old man's body. The black-robed old man let out an incomparably mournful scream, then stopped struggling. The vitality in his body had completely disappeared. His eyes were wide open, filled with shock, disbelief, and unwillingness. He racked his brains and spent dozens of years, but he still couldn't find the cultivation method of a pure spirit body. In the end, he made up his mind and made hundreds of copies of the map, hoping to borrow the help of others to find the cultivation method of a pure spirit body. Seeing that he was about to reach the final step, the cultivation method of the pure spiritual body was about to fall into his hands. His long-cherished wish was about to be fulfilled, but he had inexplicably died here. How could he be willing to accept this? Whoosh! After the black-robed old man died, the twisted black shadow reappeared and looked ferociously at Hai Yu, Flood Dragon Supreme and the others, causing them to feel a chill in their hearts. "I'm afraid that this thing is only at the embryonic stage of a domain. I suggest that we work together to destroy this damn thing first, then fight for the jade token with our own abilities. How about that?" Hai Yu suggested as he looked at Flood Dragon Supreme. The only person he was afraid of here was Flood Dragon Supreme. "Alright, I'll work together with you guys first," Flood Dragon Supreme said. Flood Dragon Supreme was also afraid of that resentment. "What about you guys?" Hai Yu looked at the other Supremes. "I'm willing." "Of course I'm willing." The other Supremes nodded. "Alright, then let's join hands and unleash the embryonic form of our domains. Let's go!" Hai Yu shouted. He thrust out his palm and the embryonic form of his domain spread out at a speed visible to the naked eye, spreading towards the black shadow. Creak creak, that black shadow seemed to be afraid of the fledgling domain. It squeaked and swayed its body, trying to dodge. "Attack! Attack!" The other Supremes, including the Supremes of the Sea Demon clan, also made their moves. Numerous embryonic domains spread out and permeated toward the black figure. There were more than 39 Heaven Supremes on the scene. They immediately set up their domains to seal off the place. The black figure had nowhere to run, and was soon enveloped by layers of domains. Creak creak, the black figure let out a shriek. It was as if it had sunk into a quagmire, unable to move its body. Obliterate. Destroy. More than 30 Supremes roared. They controlled the embryonic form of their domains and unleashed a shocking destructive force, trying to obliterate the black figure. The black figure kept twisting and screaming, struggling with all its might. However, it was useless. It was trapped by the layers of domains. Under the destructive force, its body slowly shrank and was slowly obliterated. As time passed, the black figure became smaller and smaller. After a while, with a bang, the black shadow collapsed and turned into nothingness. The black figure was finally destroyed under the combined efforts of dozens of Supremes. This time, many greedy eyes stared at the jade pendant. After the black figure was destroyed, everyone's eyes naturally focused on the jade pendant. Creak creak, just as everyone was about to make their move, another ear-piercing sound was heard. This time, it wasn't just one or two, but a whole bunch of them. Squeaks and screams converged and sounded from all directions. Then, everyone saw in horror that many black figures flew out from the surrounding palaces. They were exactly the same as the previous one. At the same time, more and more black figures flew out from the palaces behind them. Countless black figures screamed and twisted. They were hideous and terrifying. Like a black storm, they swept towards everyone. At this moment, Haiyu, Supreme Flood Dragon, and the others turned pale. There was no trace of blood in their faces. Save me, big brother, save me. Especially Hai Tian, he was so scared that he screamed. His whole body was trembling, and a foul smell came from his pants. It turned out that he was so scared that he wet himself. Charge out. Haiyu let out a roar and pulled Hai Tian along as he madly charged outside. Charge! The others also charged out. At this moment, no one was thinking about the cultivation method of the pure spirit body. There was only one thing in their mind, and that was to charge out and save their lives. Boom! 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 Everyone unleashed all kinds of attacks. Unfortunately, it was useless. Ordinary attacks were useless against those black figures. Only the embryonic form of a Supreme's domain was effective. Ah! Blood-curdling screams resounded. Many high-level spiritual god experts were entangled by the black figures and suffered terrifying attacks. Some people screamed as they were killed by the black figures. Those Supremes used their embryonic forms of domains to protect themselves and continuously charged out. Many smart spiritual god experts followed closely behind these Supremes and did their best to charge out. Countless black figures charged towards the group. Now! At this moment, Lu Ming suddenly turned around and rushed towards the jade token. He circulated the suppressing hell heavenly art and struck out with his palm. His palm carried the suppressing hell steel's shadow, and the suppressing hell steel's unique suppressive force erupted. Creak! Several black figures screamed under Lu Ming's palm and the suppressing hell heavenly art. They were constantly twisting, and seemed to be in great pain. Lu Ming punched out a few more times, and several black figures retreated far away. Lu Ming took large strides towards the jade token. As he charged, he continuously used the suppressing hell heavenly art. The suppressing hell heavenly art seemed to be the nemesis of those black figures. Wherever the suppressing hell heavenly art enveloped, those black figures retreated rapidly. What's going on? Some people widened their eyes in shock when they saw this scene. It's him, it's Lu Ming. He can restrain those black figures. Someone shouted as he recognized Lu Ming. Damn it, big brother, it's him, it's that Lu Ming. Hai Tian also saw this scene and shouted in jealousy. Let's leave this place first. Even if he can get the jade token, he can't get out of here. Hai Yu snorted coldly and led Hai Tian out with the help of other supremes from the sea-suppressing Hell Marshal's residence. Of course, this was also because Lu Ming had attracted a large number of black figures when he rushed towards the Jade Token. This reduced the pressure on Hai Yu and the others by a lot. Otherwise, they might not have been able to rush out. Chapter 1289. As for Lu Ming, he was getting closer and closer to the Jade Pendant. The closer he was to the Jade Pendant, the more irritated the black shadows became. They screamed with all their might and rushed towards Lu Ming without any regard for their lives. Some of the black shadows were extremely powerful and could pose a fatal threat to supreme beings. Lu Ming could not repel them even with the hell-suppressing heaven skill. Hell-suppressing steel. Lu Ming's spine glowed and the bloodline of the hell-suppressing steel appeared. Lu Ming performed the bloodline fusion and turned into the bloodline of the hell-suppressing steel. Below, the word steel emitted a dazzling light and the suppressive force was greatly enhanced. Boom! The hell-suppressing steel grew as big as a mountain and pressed down on the black shadows. Squeak squeak squeak, with a series of screams, the black shadows were enveloped by the hell-suppressing steel and distorted rapidly. Then, they collapsed and disappeared from the world like black smoke. Even the black shadows that could pose a threat to supreme beings were the same. Under the suppression of the hell-suppressing steel, they could not resist for long and also turned into black smoke. Swoosh! The hell-suppressing steel's bloodline vibrated and the suppressive force exploded. A large number of black shadows turned into ashes. Lu Ming was not hindered at all and flew towards the Jade Pendant. In a few breaths, Lu Ming was close to the Jade Pendant. The hell-suppressing steel shrunk and turned back into Lu Ming's appearance. It stretched out its hand and grabbed the Jade Pendant. Bang! At this moment, the Jade Pendant suddenly exploded, turning into green smoke and dissipating. What's going on? Lu Ming's face changed and became gloomy. Could it be that everything was fake? The cultivation method of the pure spirit body was fake? Was it all a scam? They were tricked into coming here and there was nothing? Thinking of this, Lu Ming's face turned even uglier. No! Lu Ming suddenly looked at a palace below. There, in the courtyard of a palace, a figure was sitting cross-legged. It was a middle-aged man. He looked like a living person, very lifelike. However, Lu Ming scanned with his spiritual consciousness and knew that this person did not have any vitality and had died many years ago. However, this person's cultivation was too strong and his physical body was strong. Even after so many years, his physical body did not decompose. This person might be the owner of this place. Lu Ming's heart moved as he guessed. At the thought of this, Lu Ming landed in the courtyard. However, Lu Ming did not dare to let his guard down. He was on his guard and at the same time, he called Bubbles out to squat on his shoulder. If anything went wrong, he could make use of Bubbles' space-time ability to escape quickly. However, after careful observation, there was nothing out of the ordinary. Moreover, when Lu Ming landed in this courtyard, the black shadows above all stopped and did not continue to pursue Lu Ming. Lu Ming observed for a while and looked disappointed. Apparently, this powerful cultivator's storage ring had been taken away after his death. He did not leave anything behind. Initially, Lu Ming thought that he would be able to obtain the cultivation method of a pure spirit body. However, it seemed impossible. Lu Ming was stunned because the middle-aged man's forehead began to glow. Then, a jade token emerged from the middle-aged man's forehead and floated above his head. When the jade token appeared, the middle-aged man's corpse exploded with a bang, turning into a pile of ashes that drifted away with the wind and disappeared between heaven and earth. There was only one jade token floating in the courtyard. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. He condensed his vital essence and condensed it into a big hand. He grabbed the jade token and held it in his hand. Is this the cultivation method of the pure spirit body? Lu Ming's heart pounded. He scanned the jade token with his spiritual consciousness. In the next moment, Lu Ming's face revealed a look of surprise. Yes, the jade token really did record a secret method. The cultivation method of the pure spirit body. Cultivating the pure spirit body would give one part of the power of the pure spirit body. Moreover, with the foundation of the pure spirit body, it would be much easier to cultivate the pure spirit body in the future. It was exactly the same as the rumors in the outside world. Lu Ming was ecstatic. If he cultivated the pure spirit body, his combat strength would definitely increase greatly. It would be much easier for him to break through to become a ruler in the future. Also, the cultivation method of the pure spirit body could be regarded as an important inheritance. In the future, his family and friends could cultivate it. In that way, the chances of them breaking through to become a ruler would be much higher. This trip wasn't in vain. Lu Ming laughed out loud. He carefully read the cultivation method of the pure spirit body again and memorized the contents. Then, he carefully put the jade token away. Following that, he looked around the hall and did not find anything else. Lu Ming soared into the sky and planned to leave. When the middle-aged man's body turned into ashes, the black shadows in the world also turned into wisps of black smoke and disappeared into the world as if they had never been there. Swoosh! Lu Ming soared into the sky and landed on the roof of a hall. Then, he ran out of the ancient city. Soon, he had run more than half the distance and was getting closer to the exit. Swoosh! Swoosh! Whoosh! At this moment, the sound of the air being torn apart was heard. Figures appeared in front of Lu Ming and blocked his path. There were a total of 10 people. One of them was Hai Tian, and the other was Hai Yu. The other 8 were all Supreme Being powerhouses brought by Hai Tian and Hai Yu. The 9 Supreme Beings blocked Lu Ming's path. Lu Ming, hand over the cultivation method of the pure spirit body. Hai Tian stared greedily at Lu Ming. If the cultivation method of the pure spirit body fell into the hands of a great force like the Sea Suppression Marshal's residence, it would definitely play a terrifying role. There would be many more powerhouses and even more rulers. Who said that I've obtained the cultivation method of the pure spirit body? Lu Ming replied indifferently. He did not admit that he had obtained the cultivation method of the pure spirit body. Humph, is there any use in quibbling? I clearly saw you rushing towards the jade pendant. You must have gotten it. Hand it over immediately. Otherwise, we'll kill you and take your storage ring. It's the same. Hai Tian shouted coldly. As for the fact that Lu Ming had attracted a large number of black shadows and allowed them to escape, he did not care at all. In his opinion, Lu Ming attracting the black shadows and letting them escape was something Lu Ming should do. It was Lu Ming's honor. Now, Lu Ming had to hand over the cultivation method of the pure spirit body. Otherwise, he would die. The cultivation method of the pure spirit body belongs to our sea demon tribe. At this moment, a loud roar was heard. One by one, tall figures rushed over and appeared behind Lu Ming, surrounding Lu Ming. It was the Flood Dragon Supreme Being and the other Supreme Being powerhouses of the Sea Demon tribe. There were a total of 10 of them. Now, the Sea Demon tribe had turned into human form, but the tyrannical aura on them was terrifying. Damn it! Hai Yu and the others growled. They looked at the Flood Dragon Supreme Being and the others with some fear. This person is a human. The cultivation method of the pure spirit body he obtained should belong to us humans. Chapter 1290. Ha ha ha, what a joke. This is the ancestral land of the sea demon race. The cultivation method of the pure spiritual body naturally belongs to the sea demon race. The Supreme Flood Dragon laughed as he stared at Hai Yu coldly. His powerful aura locked onto Lu Ming. Hai Yu did the same. He released his aura and stared at the Supreme Flood Dragon. In their eyes, their greatest enemy was each other. As for Lu Ming, although he was strong, he was alone. They didn't take him seriously at all. Lu Ming, why aren't you handing over the cultivation method of the pure spiritual body? Hurry up and hand it over. I can let bygones be bygones for beating up my brother. Hai Yu shouted coldly. He was slowly losing his patience. "Ha, do you really think you can take me down?" Lu Ming sneered. "Are you still thinking of resisting? Let me tell you, you're courting death." Hai Yu shouted. He wasn't trying to let Lu Ming go out of kindness. He was just afraid that Lu Ming would fight back and give the sea demon race an opportunity. "Is that so?" Lu Ming's lips curled up slightly. Suddenly, he pounced towards one of the Supremes from the Sea Conqueror's residence. Roar! In the process of pouncing, the 9 dragon forces in Lu Ming's body erupted. At the same time, the third bloodline appeared and a powerful force surged into Lu Ming's body. Boom! Lu Ming threw a punch towards the Supremes. The suppressing prison steel's bloodline vaguely appeared. The Supremes were shocked. He obviously didn't expect Lu Ming to suddenly attack him under such circumstances. In a hurry, he tried his best to fight back. But when the two of them exchanged blows, the Supremes from the Sea Conqueror's residence trembled violently. He retreated rapidly and spat out blood from his mouth. With Lu Ming's current strength, it was easy for him to suppress an ordinary Supremes. Moreover, the Supremes weren't prepared at all. Kill! After injuring the other party with one move, Lu Ming bellowed and stepped forward. The 9 dragons' bloodline appeared above his head. Lu Ming performed bloodline fusion and transformed into 9 dragons. The dragon claws stepped out and shattered the void. The terrifying pressure caused the Paragon's heart to tremble. He hurriedly used bloodline fusion, hoping to block Lu Ming. However, it was all in vain. Lu Ming's dragon claws slashed down continuously, breaking apart the opponent's bloodline power, causing his bloodline body to collapse and reverting back to human form. Whoosh! The dragon claws did not stop and continued to claw downwards. No, that person roared, and in the next instant, the dragon claw reached into his dantian. A violent power tore his body apart, and even his spiritual deity was torn to shreds. Both body and soul were destroyed. A supreme martial artist was annihilated in a few moves by Lu Ming when he launched an attack. Fast, too fast. It was so fast that Hai Yu and the others only reacted now. "You're courting death." Hai Yu let out a furious roar, and the battle axe in his hand chopped down at the 9 dragons' heads. This axe seemed to be able to split the heavens and earth. Its power was shocking. The pitch-black axe radiance instantly chopped down on the 9 dragons' heads. Hell-suppressing heaven skill. Thunder God Strike. A few of the 9 dragons' claws activated the hell-suppressing heaven skill, while the other dragon claws executed Thunder God Strike. Lightning filled the sky, forming a lightning phoenix that danced in the air, pouncing towards Hai Yu's battle axe. Boom! 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 After a few consecutive explosions, the 9 dragon claws landed on the battle axe. With each explosion, Lu Ming's body trembled slightly. After 9 explosions, Lu Ming was forced back 9 steps. Hai Yu's battle strength was too strong. He had awakened a 9th-grade divine bloodline. Such a person was a peerless genius, and he could easily jump levels to fight. He was invincible among those of the same level. Moreover, his cultivation was far above Lu Ming's. He could force Lu Ming to retreat without using bloodline fusion. This showed how terrifying his battle strength was. Kill! When Hai Yu saw that Lu Ming was able to block his attack, his killing intent exploded. With a loud roar, he held onto his battle axe and launched a barrage of attacks at Lu Ming. Tang! 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 The 9 dragons stepped in the air, and every inch of his muscles was a weapon. He could use the hell-suppressing heaven skill to fight against Hai Yu. The terrifying force shattered the ancient city below. Many palaces were reduced to ashes by the force of the force. In an instant, the two exchanged more than 10 blows. Although Lu Ming was at a disadvantage, he wouldn't be defeated in a short time. Let's attack together. Hai Yu ordered the other Supremes in the sea-suppressing marshal's residence. At this moment, Supreme Flood Dragon and the rest were watching from afar. They did not make a move. This made Hai Yu feel extremely pressured. He wanted to kill Lu Ming quickly and seize the cultivation method of the pure spirit body to prevent any undue delay. Whoosh! 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 The other Supremes also made their moves. Powerful attacks tore through the void and landed on Lu Ming. At the same time, a huge battle axe appeared above Hai Yu's head. This was his bloodline. 9 golden chakras shone brightly. Hai Yu turned into a beam of light and entered his bloodline. He used bloodline fusion and turned into a battle axe. He slashed at Lu Ming with even more power. Wang! The lightning cauldron appeared above Lu Ming's head. It expanded rapidly and collided with Hai Yu's battle axe. Clang! The lightning cauldron and the battle axe collided. The space rippled like water, and thousands of lightning bolts were triggered. The lightning cauldron firmly blocked Hai Yu's battle axe and even sent it flying. Then, the divine dragon swung its tail, and with a sweep of its 9 tails, it destroyed the attacks of several Supremes. Kill! Then, Lu Ming roared and stepped out with his dragon claw. In the sky, 3 sealed doors suddenly appeared and enveloped a Supreme Being. Then, he controlled the lightning cauldron and smashed it at the Supreme Being. The Supreme Being didn't even have time to scream. He was directly submerged by the lightning cauldron and shattered into pieces in the sea of lightning. Another Supreme Being was killed. Ah, damn it! Lu Ming, you must die today. Hai Yu roared crazily. The Supreme Beings of the Sea Suppressing Marshal's residence were killed one after another. He was about to go crazy. The battle axe vibrated and split the heaven and earth. It slashed at Lu Ming with terrifying power. Clang! Lu Ming continued to block with the lightning cauldron and the battle axe. However, the battle axe was also sent flying. Whoosh! Dragon Claw stepped on the air. Lu Ming didn't continue to fight. Instead, he rushed out. After all, there were too many opponents. Lu Ming planned to leave this place first. It's about time. Let's attack. We can't let this kid escape. Not far away, the Flood Dragon Supreme, who had been watching the battle, said. At the same time, his body changed rapidly and turned into a black flood dragon that was 1,000 meters long. He pounced at Lu Ming. The other sea demons also turned into their true forms and attacked Lu Ming. With so many Supreme Beings attacking together, a pile of embryonic domains appeared and sealed the surroundings, completely blocking Lu Ming's escape route. Especially the Flood Dragon Supreme. He was extremely powerful and wasn't any weaker than Hai Yu. With so many people attacking together, Lu Ming felt a terrifying pressure. Kill! Hai Yu yelled as well. Together with Supreme Flood Dragon and the rest, they charged towards Lu Ming. Bubble! At this moment, Lu Ming called out softly. Chirp chirp. Chapter 1291. The 10 Supremes, including the Flood Dragon Supreme, were instantly frozen in the air, unable to move. This is the space-time concept. The Flood Dragon Supreme and the others roared in their hearts, their faces filled with fear. Kill! Lu Ming roared. His dragon claw stepped on the air and instantly appeared in front of a huge octopus. His dragon claw grabbed the octopus's 8 tentacles and tore it apart. The octopus let out a blood-curdling scream as its body was torn apart, dying on the spot. After killing another supreme martial artist, Lu Ming didn't stop at all and continued to kill the next one. This time, Lu Ming targeted Supreme Flood Dragon and charged toward him. Hai Yu and the others' attacks arrived from behind. Lu Ming controlled the lightning cauldron and attacked Hai Yu and the others. Mouth whirled. At the same time, Dandan also made its move. Its body became taller than a mountain as it spat out a ball of chaotic light from its mouth. It was like a real world. Dandan cooperated with the lightning cauldron and successfully blocked Hai Yu and the Supremes from the Sea Suppressing Marshal's residence. As for Lu Ming, he continued to attack the Flood Dragon Supreme. He had to end the battle quickly. The power of the bubble's space-time imprisonment was limited. It couldn't hold on for long if it imprisoned so many Supremes at once. The 9 dragon claws were about to grab the Flood Dragon Supreme. Dragon Mark Sword. At this moment, the Flood Dragon Supreme let out a roar and spat out a black battle sword. This black battle sword had a true dragon coiling around it, and there were dragon patterns engraved on it. As soon as the battle sword appeared, Sword Chi soared into the sky. It slightly trembled and slashed towards the transparent bubble. With a puff, the transparent bubble cracked. As soon as the bubble cracked, the terrifying Sword Chi seemed to have broken free from its restraints and slashed towards Lu Ming. Not good, it's an Emperor's spiritual weapon. Lu Ming's face changed. He didn't dare to face it head-on. He executed the 9 dragons' heaven-stomping steps and quickly retreated, avoiding the terrifying Sword Chi. Kill! The Flood Dragon Sovereign controlled the Dragon Vein Sword and continued to attack Lu Ming. Sword Chi swept out in all directions. Lu Ming could only control the Lightning Cauldron to resist. With a clang, the Lightning Cauldron shook, and the lightning that filled the sky was cut apart. The Lightning Cauldron was sent flying. An Emperor-grade spirit weapon. The Dragon Vein Sword used by the Flood Dragon Sovereign was an Emperor-level spiritual weapon. It was the Emperor-level spiritual weapon among spiritual weapons. It was a top-notch existence with terrifying power. Most importantly, a ruler spirit armament contained a domain. When a sovereign activated the domain within the ruler spirit armament with their own embryonic domain, the power would be even more astonishing. Back then, with Yen Kuangtu's supreme position and the Emperor's spirit tower, the combat strength he displayed was comparable to the weakest emperor. On the other hand, Yen Kuangtu had only awakened a level 8 divine bloodline, which was weaker than Flood Dragon Sovereigns. Naturally, his battle strength was also weaker than Flood Dragon Sovereigns. In other words, with the help of a ruler's spirit weapon, the power unleashed by the Flood Dragon Supreme had completely reached the level of a ruler. In fact, it had even surpassed that of an ordinary ruler. Chirp chirp, a transparent bubble appeared, enveloping the Flood Dragon Sovereign and the others within. They were frozen in place once again. Break for me! Flood Dragon Sovereign frantically activated the Dragon Vein Sword, wanting to break free from the bubble's imprisonment. However, no matter how strong his battle strength was, it would still take some time for him to break free from the bubble. This amount of time was more than enough for Lu Ming. Lu Ming charged towards a Shark Sovereign. That Shark Sovereign couldn't move at all under the bubble's shroud. His body was torn apart by Lu Ming's dragon claws, and he died on the spot. Another supreme martial artist was killed. Bang! At this moment, Flood Dragon Sovereign finally broke free from the transparent bubble and charged towards Lu Ming with a furious roar. Lu Ming retreated. He didn't want to clash head-on with Flood Dragon Sovereign. All of you, spread out. If anyone is trapped, help each other. Flood Dragon Sovereign yelled. The other Sea Demon Sovereigns spread out and attacked Lu Ming from afar. Their attacks tore through the void and headed towards Lu Ming. Die! At this moment, a cold voice rang out. A terrifying attack headed towards Lu Ming. The terrifying attack completely enveloped Lu Ming. At this moment, Lu Ming's hair stood on end. He felt the threat of death. Hai Yu had originally used bloodline fusion to transform into a battle axe. However, at this moment, another battle axe appeared beside Hai Yu's battle axe, emitting an extremely terrifying aura. An Emperor's spiritual weapon. Another Emperor's spiritual weapon. Hai Yu also wielded an Emperor's spiritual weapon. With his cultivation, the might of his Emperor's spiritual weapon wasn't any weaker than Flood Dragon Sovereign's. Previously, he had been holding back and didn't use his Emperor's spiritual weapon. He was waiting for an opportunity to launch a fatal attack. With this attack, he wanted to kill Lu Ming in one fell swoop. This attack was indeed well grasped. In a hurry, Lu Ming controlled the Thunder Cauldron to block. However, Lu Ming's cultivation was still weak. Although the Thunder Cauldron was strong, it couldn't exert much of its power. It was slashed by the battle axe and flew far away. The battle axe didn't stop and continued to slash at Lu Ming. Nest, watch me. Dandan shouted and retracted its limbs into its turtle shell. The turtle shell shone and flew out to block the battle axe. Clang! The battle axe slashed at the turtle shell and sent Dandan flying far away. However, after Dandan's block, Lu Ming had won an opportunity. Using the 9 Dragons' heaven-stomping steps, Lu Ming retreated like a stream of light, avoiding Hai Yu's fatal attack. At the same time, Bubble opened its mouth and spat out a transparent bubble that enveloped Hai Yu. Hai Yu roared and controlled his Emperor's spiritual weapon to attack the transparent bubble with all his might. At the same time, the attacks of Flood Dragon Sovereign and the other sea demons arrived. With so many Supremes and the 2 strongest Supremes with Emperor's spiritual weapons, Lu Ming was exhausted and was at a complete disadvantage. Moreover, the other party had learned their lesson. Everyone was spread out far away. Bubble's conception of time and space could not cover such a large area. At once, it could only cover 1 or 2 people. Seeing that one person had been enveloped and imprisoned, Lu Ming wanted to kill him, but the others immediately came to his rescue. More than a dozen terrifying attacks pierced through the void and attacked Lu Ming, giving him no time to kill the others. As a result, even if Lu Ming, Dandan, and Bubble worked together, they were still very passive and were no match for the other party. The situation was very critical. There were too many people on the other side. In total, there were nearly 20 Supremes, and 2 of them were top-notch Supremes. Their combat strength was already terrifying, and with the addition of Emperor's spiritual weapons, it was like 2 rulers were attacking. With so many people working together, it was normal for Lu Ming and the others to be no match for them. If it were anyone else, even an ordinary ruler, they would not be a match for them and would be seriously injured. It was already shocking that Lu Ming could barely resist. However, if this continued, it would be more and more disadvantageous for Lu Ming. In the blink of an eye, another dozen or so moves had been exchanged. The light on the 9 Dragons' bloodline began to dim. His bloodline power is about to be exhausted. Kill! He's dead for sure. Hai Yu and the others were overjoyed. Bang! At this moment, the 9 Dragons' bloodline collapsed, but before Hai Yu, Flood Dragon Sovereign, and the others could smile, a stone tablet appeared and rapidly grew in size. Chapter 1292. Clang! The lower part of the suppressing steel's bloodline was the main body. It was invincible and blocked the Dragon Vein Sword's attack. Although it was sent flying, it wasn't destroyed. Yeah, my intent of Earth is about to break through. At this moment, Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. Originally, when he entered the depths of the sea, his intent of Earth was already showing signs of loosening. After a series of battles, Lu Ming circulated his 5 intents to the extreme. In addition, Lu Ming was using the bloodline of the suppressing steel, which made him feel closer to the intent of Earth, as if he would break through at any moment. Buzz! Buzz! The prison-suppressing steel vibrated. Together with Bubbles, Dandan, Hai Yu, Supreme Flood Dragon, and the rest, Lu Ming unleashed all his abilities to the maximum. While fighting, Lu Ming was still comprehending the Earth concept. As long as he succeeded in comprehending the intent of Earth and broke through to the perfect 4th stage, Lu Ming's battle strength would also increase. Lu Ming would also have a greater chance of breaking out of the encirclement. Mountain Sea Slash! Hai Yu roared. At this point in the battle, Hai Yu had completely lost his patience. He unleashed his battle strength to the extreme, eager to kill Lu Ming. At this moment, he had already returned to his human form. Holding the Emperor Grade Giant Axe in his hand, he constantly slashed at Lu Ming. Hai Yu's main intent was the intent of Earth. When the axe slashed out, the terrifying pressure of the intent of Earth acted on Lu Ming's body, as if it wanted to break Lu Ming's body. However, Lu Ming wasn't shocked. Instead, he was happy. I'll use you to help me break through. Lu Ming's eyes revealed a trace of ruthlessness. He controlled the lightning cauldron and charged at Hai Yu. This time, Lu Ming didn't choose to retreat. Instead, he chose to fight Hai Yu head-on. Die! Seeing Lu Ming charging at him, Haiyu was overjoyed. The power of the axe in his hand couldn't help but increase a little. Clang! The axe and the lightning cauldron clashed, causing a violent tremor. A terrifying force surged, causing Lu Ming's body to tremble violently as he retreated. Dandan, Bubble, help me hold off the sea monsters for now. Lu Ming transmitted his voice to Dandan and Bubbles. Chirp chirp. Bubble waved its claws and nodded repeatedly, indicating that there was no problem. Dandan, on the other hand, was full of resentment. It kept muttering that it wanted Lu Ming to compensate it. However, Dandan and Bubble were indeed worthy of being one of the top 10 war beasts. Although they hadn't fully matured yet, they were able to unleash their full strength and cooperate with each other. Although they couldn't defeat the Flood Dragon Sovereign, they could still delay him for a short period of time. Lu Ming, on the other hand, was wholeheartedly focused on fighting Haiyu. He wanted to use the sea to break through the concept of Earth. Clang! 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 Lu Ming used the lightning cauldron as a shield to block the other party's Emperor Spirit weapon and engaged in a great battle with Haiyu. Although Lu Ming was completely at a disadvantage, Haiyu couldn't kill Lu Ming for the time being. In the blink of an eye, they had exchanged dozens of moves. Almost there, almost there. With the help of Haiyu's concept of Earth and his own body, Lu Ming felt that his understanding of the concept of Earth was constantly deepening, and he could break through at any time. Earth, all-inclusive, can give birth to life, give birth to all things, contain everything, thick and broad. Lu Ming's mind was constantly spinning with thoughts. At this time, many figures appeared in the distance where Lu Ming and the others were fighting. They were all people who had entered this place. They were watching from afar, and there were high-level spirit god experts and supreme being experts. At this moment, they were all incomparably shocked. Is that Lu Ming's battle strength? It's really shocking. The strongest youth expert is too strong. Even after Haiyu and the Flood Dragon Sovereign used their Emperor Spirit weapons, together with the cooperation of a dozen other supreme beings, they still couldn't take him down. Terrifying, too terrifying. Moreover, Lu Ming's two pets are also incomparably terrifying. The onlookers exclaimed in amazement. They looked at Lu Ming with astonishment. Of course, there were also supreme beings who had other thoughts. It seems like the pure spirit body cultivation method has fallen into Lu Ming's hands. The stronger Lu Ming is, the better. It's best if he and Haiyu and the others are both injured. At that time, I can sit back and reap the benefits. Some supreme beings thought. In fact, it wasn't only this supreme being who thought so. The other supreme beings also had the same thought. These supreme beings had all entered by themselves. At most, there were two of them working together. They weren't a match for Haiyu or the Flood Dragon Sovereign. If the pure spirit body cultivation method fell into the hands of Haiyu or the Flood Dragon Sovereign, they would have no hope at all. However, if Lu Ming could injure both of them, they would have some hope. How is this possible? How can Lu Ming be so strong? How can there be such a strong person in the younger generation? I can't accept it. Not far away, Hai Tian muttered to himself. His eyes were filled with jealousy. He was the most shocked. Lu Ming's battle strength had exceeded his imagination again and again. At this moment, on the 9th island in the sea, there was a sea of people. Many martial artists with low cultivation bases who couldn't go deep into the sea were waiting here. They couldn't go deep into the sea, so they waited here to see if there was a pure spirit body cultivation method and who could get it. Rip! At this moment, the space suddenly split open, and a figure stepped out from it. It was a gray-haired old man wearing a purple gold robe. As soon as he appeared, an earth-shattering aura spread out, making it difficult for people to breathe. It was as if there was a mountain pressing down on them. Sovereign, it's the Sovereign. Judging from his attire, it's the Sovereign of the Sea-Suppressing Marshal's residence. The eldest son of the Sea-Suppressing Marshal, Haiyu, is here personally. Now, even the Sovereign is here. Many people exclaimed. They looked at the purple gold-robed old man with fear. Even the Sovereign was here. After the purple-gold-robed old man appeared, he casually glanced around. Then, he stood calmly in the void and didn't enter the sea. In the depths of the sea, in the ancient city, Lu Ming and Hai Yu exchanged a few blows. Lu Ming, we have to find a way to break out. We can't hold on any longer. Dandan shouted, waving its claws. All kinds of inscriptions spread out in the air, forming a large formation. At the same time, Dandan also used all kinds of martial arts, all of which were mysterious and dazzling. Almost done. Lu Ming's eyes became brighter and brighter. Suddenly, among the 5 intents on his body, the earthy yellow intent suddenly soared. Its power increased by a notch, surpassing the other 4 intents. The earth intent finally broke through and reached level 4 perfection. In this way, all 5 of Lu Ming's intents reached level 4 perfection. Clang! The 5 intents combined with the thunder cauldron and clashed with Hai Yu. In the roar, Lu Ming retreated. But this time, Lu Ming retreated less than before. So what if you broke through? You're still going to die. Hai Yu shouted, holding the battle axe, and continued to attack Lu Ming. Dandan, Bubbles, that's enough. Get ready to break out. Lu Ming transmitted to Dandan and Bubbles, preparing to let Bubbles use the space-time tunnel to break out. Chapter 1293. A token suddenly flew out from Lu Ming's body, floating above Lu Ming's head, emitting a blinding light. It was the primordial chaos token. The token that suddenly appeared on Lu Ming's body was actually the primordial chaos token. Why would the primordial chaos token suddenly appear at this time? Lu Ming was bewildered. As soon as the primordial chaos token appeared, the 5 types of concepts on Lu Ming's body took the initiative to wrap around the primordial chaos token, making the primordial chaos token shine even brighter. Bang! Hai Yu's axe chopped down on the primordial chaos token's light. The light did not move at all. Instead, it was Hai Yu who was repelled by a powerful force, retreating again and again. Following that, the primordial chaos token scattered a beam of light, enveloping Lu Ming inside. Lu Ming felt a powerful pulling force, wanting to pull Lu Ming to another place. What's going on? Lu Ming was alarmed. Rip! Suddenly, space trembled. Lu Ming felt the world spin. Everything before his eyes turned black, falling into boundless darkness. Lu Ming had a feeling that he seemed to be passing through the endless void, carrying out a void journey. After an unknown amount of time, Lu Ming felt that he had recovered his ability to move. In front of his eyes, there was also light shining into Lu Ming's eyes. Lu Ming subconsciously opened his eyes and looked around. Sure enough, the surrounding environment had changed. He was no longer in the ancient underwater city, but in a great hall. The great hall was tall and majestic. The surrounding walls were built with a kind of boulder, full of an ancient aura. Moreover, on the walls, there was a kind of chaotic fog floating. This kind of fog was something Lu Ming had never seen before, but it gave him a lofty and ancient feeling. Where is this? Did the primordial chaos token bring me here? A series of questions appeared in Lu Ming's heart. Previously, the primordial chaos token suddenly appeared on its own, emitting a blinding light. The reason why he appeared here was definitely related to the primordial chaos token. But why would the primordial chaos token suddenly have an abnormality and bring him here at that time? What was the reason? The more he thought about it, the more questions Lu Ming had. Also, Dandan and Bubbles were still in the ancient underwater city and didn't follow them. He didn't know if they would be in danger facing Hai Yu and the others. Dandan and Bubbles are both top 10 beasts. Their life-saving methods must be superb. They should be fine. Lu Ming consoled himself. Then, he carefully observed his surroundings. There was nothing in the empty hall. There was no one. There was only a huge door in front of the hall. It seemed to be a passageway. Excuse me, is anyone here? Lu Ming opened his mouth, but there was no one there. He didn't get any reply. Lu Ming frowned and asked again, but there was still no answer. Just when Lu Ming thought that there were no living creatures here, a voice suddenly sounded. How many years has it been? Finally, someone has come. The voice was dry and ear-piercing, as if it was devoid of any emotions. Senior, Junior Lu Ming, may I know why you brought me here? Hearing the voice, Lu Ming's spirit was refreshed and he cupped his fists towards the void. The primordial chaos token brought you here because you met the requirements. The dry voice sounded again. Then, in front of Lu Ming, the space rippled and a figure stepped out of it. Ha! Seeing this figure, Lu Ming was slightly taken aback. Because this figure was very strange. Although it was a middle-aged man, his whole body was khaki. Even his skin and hair were khaki, as if he was carved out of stone. However, this khaki man gave Lu Ming a feeling that he was vast and unfathomable. It was as if he was facing the world. Strong, this was definitely an incredible powerhouse. His strength was beyond Lu Ming's imagination. You don't have to be surprised. I'm not a human. I'm just a puppet. The khaki man said. Puppet? Lu Ming was shocked. The khaki man was actually a puppet, but it seemed that he also had human thoughts and emotions. Moreover, his cultivation was unfathomable. This was actually a puppet. What kind of existence was this? Could he refine such a puppet? Senior, may I ask where this place is? How did I appear here? Lu Ming asked humbly. This is the Primordial Chaos Sect, the Primordial Chaos Palace. Also, my name is 2E. The khaki man explained. Primordial Chaos Sect, it's the Primordial Chaos Sect again. Lu Ming's eyes moved. In the ruins of God, he had heard Dandan say that it was the Spacetime Spirit Palace, which also belonged to the Primordial Chaos Sect. And this place was also the Primordial Chaos Sect. Sure enough, the Battle of Providence was related to the Primordial Chaos Sect. Senior 2E, is this place no longer in the Yuan realm? Lu Ming asked. Yes, this place is the Heaven Realm. 2E said. The Heaven Realm. Lu Ming was shocked. Just now, the Primordial Chaos token had brought him to the Heaven Realm. You should have a lot of questions. I can explain it to you. You should have obtained the Primordial Chaos token through the Battle of Providence. There are not many people who can obtain the Primordial Chaos token. Only those who are considered to have great potential can obtain the Primordial Chaos token. And you should have cultivated 5 different types of wills of heaven and earth. Moreover, all 5 wills have reached the peak of the 4th level. Therefore, the Primordial Chaos token was activated and brought you to the Primordial Chaos Palace. Here, you will be tested. If you can pass the test, you will be able to obtain the Primordial Chaos scripture and combine the 5 wills you have comprehended into one. From then on, you will transform into the Supreme Primordial Chaos concept. 2E explained in detail. Primordial Chaos concept. Is there really a Primordial Chaos concept in the world? Lu Ming was shocked and his eyes widened. He had also heard of the Primordial Chaos concept. It was a supreme concept. According to legend, the universe came from chaos. The Primordial Chaos concept was a concept that transcended time and space. If the time and space concepts were the kings of the wills, then the Primordial Chaos concept was the emperor of the wills. Lu Ming had always thought that the Primordial Chaos concept was only a legend. He did not expect such a concept to exist in the world. Moreover, according to 2E, as long as Lu Ming passed the test, he would be able to obtain the Primordial Chaos scripture and cultivate the Primordial Chaos concept. Lu Ming's heart could not help but beat rapidly. The Primordial Chaos scripture was created by the strongest person in the Primordial Chaos sect. It can allow you to cultivate the Primordial Chaos concept. After becoming an emperor, you can transform into the Primordial Chaos domain. Later on, you can even transform into the law of Primordial Chaos. It is the strongest secret scripture in the world. However, if you want to cultivate it, the conditions are extremely harsh. First, you have to cultivate 5 different types of wills to the peak of the 4th level. Alright, show me the wills you have comprehended. Let me have a look. Tui said. All right. Lu Ming quickly nodded. The 5 types of wills burst out and 5 colored rays of light twined around Lu Ming's body. It was dazzling. Chapter 1294. The concept of earth, concept of wind, concept of fire, concept of thunder, and concept of water are indeed 5 different types of concepts, and they are fused together. You barely qualify to take the test, but whether you can obtain the primal chaos scripture or successfully cultivate it, you still have to go through a series of tests. 2E looked at the 5 types of intent surrounding Lu Ming and nodded slightly. Deep in his eyes, there was a glimmer of hope. Lu Ming was secretly shocked. He was amazed by the crazy requirements to cultivate the Chaos Sutra. First, one had to comprehend 5 completely different types of intent. For example, Lu Ming's earth intent, wind intent, fire intent, thunder intent, and water intent were 5 completely different types of intent. If Lu Ming cultivated the earth intent and the other type was the mountain intent or earth intent, it would be impossible. This was because the mountain intent or earth intent and the earth intent were of the same type. Or if one cultivated the water intent, ice intent, swamp intent, etc., it would also be impossible because their intrinsic attributes were the same. Only by cultivating 5 completely different types of intent to the peak of the 4th level was 1 in a billion geniuses. Furthermore, to successfully fuse all 5 types of intent was even more difficult. It was simply too harsh. If not for Lu Ming's 9 dragons bloodline, it would be impossible for him to achieve it. Lu Ming found it hard to imagine anyone in the world other than him who could achieve such a requirement. And this was only the initial requirement of the test. If he wanted to cultivate it, he still had to go through another test. Alright, I've pretty much said everything that needs to be said. Now, take the test. Enter that passage and walk straight ahead. If you can reach the end, you'll be able to obtain the primal chaos scripture and cultivate the concept of primal chaos. If you fail halfway, you'll be teleported out. Also, here, time is accelerated many times. Even if you stay here for a few years, it might only be a short while in the outside world. So, you can rest assured and take the test. 2E said. A few years here is only a short while in the outside world? Lu Ming's eyes lit up and he was overjoyed. He was worried that if he stayed here for too long, there would be changes in the outside world. For example, Dandan and Bubbles, or the situation in the Divine Wilderness continent. But now, Lu Ming didn't have to worry. A few years here was just a short while in the outside world. What was there to worry about? At the same time, he was also amazed at the strength of the Hunyuan sect. What kind of power was the Hunyuan sect? It was truly unfathomable and unimaginably powerful. I must get the primal chaos scripture. Without any worries, Lu Ming's eyes shone with fighting spirit, and he clenched his fists. The chaotic concept was a legendary concept. If he could successfully cultivate it, his battle prowess would increase tremendously, and it would become his strongest trump card. Most importantly, the help it would provide in the future was unimaginable. Lu Ming's eyes slowly became firm. Senior 2E, I'll be going then. Lu Ming cupped his fists towards 2E, then stepped out and walked towards the tunnel. His figure slowly disappeared into the tunnel. How many years has it been? Finally, someone has come. This time, we must succeed. Looking at Lu Ming's disappearing figure, 2Yi's eyes were filled with hope and expectation. He had been waiting for countless years. Over the long years, there were also outstanding geniuses who met the requirements and were brought here. Unfortunately, none of them could reach the end, pass all the tests, and cultivate the chaotic concept. Therefore, he could only wait. Every time someone came, it was a ray of hope. He was full of expectations, hoping that someone would succeed. 2E stood quietly in the main hall, waiting quietly. Lu Ming stepped into the tunnel. At first, everything was calm, but after walking for a while, the surrounding environment suddenly changed. Kill, kill, kill. Suddenly, roars filled with killing intent rang out. Endless killing intent suddenly enveloped Lu Ming's body. At this moment, Lu Ming's eyes suddenly turned red, as if countless beasts had been aroused in his heart. Lu Ming's heart was also filled with endless killing intent. This kind of killing intent was too cold and too strong. An ordinary person would become an idiot if they were hit by this kind of killing intent. However, Lu Ming's eyes only fluctuated for a while at first, then immediately calmed down. It's another killing intent test, but compared to the endless killing intent of the third bloodline, it's too weak. Lu Ming thought in his heart. His eyes became calmer and calmer, not affected by the killing intent. In fact, Lu Ming also understood why there was a killing intent test. Because in a martial artist's life, if they wanted to reach the peak, they had to kill their way out, from mountains of corpses and seas of blood. This path was destined to be a path of blood, a path full of killing intent. Those who were not determined would be affected by the killing intent. Therefore, the tests set by some powerful inheritances would test the killing intent. Unfortunately, Lu Ming's third bloodline had endless killing intent. Compared to the third bloodline, these tests were child's play. Despite the murderous intent shrouding him, Lu Ming remained indifferent. His gaze was calm as he walked forward step by step. Suddenly, the surrounding environment changed again. The endless killing intent disappeared without a trace. Squeak squeak, Lu Ming could hear the melodious chirping of birds. It was crisp and pleasing to the ears. A gentle breeze blew, bringing with it the fragrance of flowers that refreshed the mind. It was completely different from the endless killing intent just now. Lu Ming's heart could not help but calm down. Looking up, Lu Ming found that he was outside a small mountain village. There was a small mountain village in front of him. Around the small mountain village, the grass was green and there were all kinds of colorful flowers. There were birds flying and chirping. It was like a paradise. Ring ring ring. A melodious sound was heard. It was a 6 or 7-year-old girl. She looked very cute with a rosy face. She had a string of bells on her wrists and ankles. When she walked, they made melodious sounds. The little girl ran to Lu Ming's side and looked at Lu Ming curiously. She whispered, "Big brother, are you an outsider? Are you lost? Come to my house to play. Ling Ling will treat you to milk tea." After saying that, the little girl pulled Lu Ming's hand and walked toward the village. She was so innocent and cute that Lu Ming could not bear to refuse. "Hello, young man." A simple and honest man carrying a bunch of firewood greeted Lu Ming with a simple smile when he saw Lu Ming. Even though Lu Ming knew that this was an illusion, he could not help but be infected by the man's simplicity. He smiled and nodded at the man. "Mother, this big brother is lost. I brought him here to be a guest and treat him to milk tea." The little girl pulled Lu Ming into the village and came to a wooden house. In front of the wooden house, there was a young woman in her 30s. When she saw Lu Ming, she revealed a pure smile. She touched the little girl's head dotingly and said, "Since you are Ling Ling's friend, you are Mom's friend. Wait here. I will get the milk tea." Chapter 1295. Ling Ling, you have a friend. Can you treat me to a drink too? A white-haired old man walked over and said with a smile. "Of course, fifth grandpa." The little girl smiled. The villagers were really simple and honest. None of them were scheming. Their smiles were very clean. Lu Ming couldn't help but be infected. He picked up the milk tea and took a sip. It was very fragrant and sweet. "Big brother, is it delicious?" The little girl blinked her big eyes and asked. "It's delicious." Lu Ming smiled. "Thank you, big brother." The little girl smiled happily and jumped up and down. The bells on her wrists and ankles rang pleasantly. The people of the small mountain village were very simple. Lu Ming's arrival attracted a lot of people, but most of them were very simple and honest. They looked at Lu Ming with a smile that revealed a sense of authenticity. "I wonder what this illusion is going to test." A thought flashed through Lu Ming's mind as he drank the milk tea. Suddenly, there was a slight sound in the air. It was really soft, like a child holding a sharp knife and stabbing at Lu Ming. The sound was very soft. But with Lu Ming's cultivation, he could still hear it clearly. It was Ling Ling, the little girl. A dagger appeared in her hand and she stabbed at Lu Ming's stomach. At this time, the little girl was not naive at all. Her face was full of ferocity. "Kill!" The little girl shouted and stabbed the dagger straight at Lu Ming. Lu Ming stepped back slightly and avoided the little girl's attack. "Kill!" Behind him, a cold shout sounded. The little girl's mother, the kind young woman, also held a sword and stabbed at Lu Ming with a ferocious face. Then, on the right, the old man, the little girl's fifth grandpa, who was simple and honest before, also took out a knife and slashed at Lu Ming. Their strength was very small and weak, like ordinary villagers, but they seemed to have a deep hatred for Lu Ming and wanted to kill Lu Ming. Lu Ming casually retreated and dodged all the attacks. However, they continued to attack Lu Ming relentlessly. "Kill!" Other than the little girl and the other villagers also took out their weapons and charged at Lu Ming. "What are you doing?" Lu Ming shouted. However, no one uttered a single word. With bloodshot eyes, they charged toward Lu Ming. When Lu Ming retreated, they continued to attack Lu Ming. Around the small mountain village, the originally simple and honest villagers all charged at Lu Ming as if they had gone mad. They wanted to kill Lu Ming, and all kinds of weapons continuously stabbed and slashed at Lu Ming. Lu Ming dodged the attack and wanted to soar into the air and leave this place. However, he discovered that he could not. He was blocked by a force. "Kill!" More and more villagers gathered, and all of them charged at Lu Ming with bloodshot eyes. Ding ling ling. The little girl, Ling Ling, rushed to the front and stabbed at Lu Ming's stomach with a dagger. Lu Ming dodged again and again, but the number of villagers increased and surrounded him in all directions. Lu Ming's eyes became colder and colder. "I don't kill innocent people, but since you want to kill me, you're not innocent. Since you're my enemy, then I'll kill you. Kill!" When Lu Ming uttered the word "kill," a cold murderous intent burst out from Lu Ming's body. A long spear appeared in Lu Ming's hand. The long spear swayed, and the sky was filled with spear shadows. Puff! Puff! The long spear stabbed out, and the first one to bear the brunt was the little girl. The spear light pierced through her forehead and nailed her to the ground. Then, it was the young woman and the simple fifth grandpa. A kind and simple person was assassinated on the ground by Lu Ming. In the beginning, Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. However, his gaze was soon replaced by coldness and disdain. On the path of martial arts, if you want to kill, then kill thoroughly. Kill! Kill! The spear light whistled. How could these villagers resist? They were killed one by one. Corpses covered the mountain village, and blood dyed this paradise red. Lu Ming strode forward, step by step, out of the mountain village. There were still villagers charging at Lu Ming from all directions, and in the end, they all turned into corpses. Soon, Lu Ming stepped out of the village and saw a town that was bigger than the previous village. Many people shouted with bloodshot eyes at the sight of Lu Ming. "Murderer, you killed the innocent. Kill him." In the town, more people charged at Lu Ming. Lu Ming had no choice but to kill, and kill all the way out. Between heaven and earth, blood chi filled the air, and there were millions of corpses on the ground. Wherever Lu Ming went, everyone who saw Lu Ming wanted to kill him. Lu Ming could only choose to kill them. Slowly, Lu Ming's eyes turned red, and his body exuded a cold killing intent. His eyes became colder and colder. Outside, in the hall, Tui was staring at a ball in front of him. The scene on the ball was the scene where Lu Ming was. Suddenly, ripples appeared in the space, and a golden figure appeared beside Tui. Jean-E. Tui nodded. "How is it? You can't even pass the first stage, right?" Jean-E asked. "I don't know. The first stage is very difficult. A martial arts expert can't be soft-hearted. When you meet an enemy, you must kill them no matter what. This is a must. If you are soft-hearted, you will only die in the hands of the enemy. However, amidst the endless slaughter, amidst the mountains of corpses and seas of blood, one must remain clear-headed. One must maintain one's original heart and mind. Some people's nature will slowly change amidst the endless slaughter. In the end, they will become a killing machine. 2E frowned slightly. Yes, humans are easy to get lost. Jean E also said. Suddenly, the space moved again, and a few more figures appeared. Like 2E, they were all puppets, but in different colors. They were Lei E, Mu E, and Shui E. When these figures appeared, they all stared at the ball without blinking. It's been so many years, I hope this kid can pass. Gold One sighed. Everyone looked at him and didn't say anything else. Lu Ming's killing continued. His eyes became redder and redder, and the killing intent on his body became stronger and stronger. Kill, kill, kill. Kill everything. In his mind, there was a voice, constantly roaring, as if to drown Lu Ming in endless slaughter. This kind of killing intent, this kind of killing, was born in Lu Ming's heart, and was not imposed on Lu Ming by the outside world. Even the third bloodline could not help Lu Ming. Suppress. Suddenly, a loud voice sounded in Lu Ming's mind. That was the voice of the prison-suppressing steel bloodline. Lu Ming shuddered, and in his mind, a trace of clarity was restored. No, Lu Ming, only kill enemies in my life, not innocent people. No matter how many enemies I kill, they are still enemies, and have nothing to do with others. Even if I want to kill, I will kill those who deserve to be killed. Lu Ming's mind turned sharply, and his eyes slowly restored clarity. In the end, he simply sat cross-legged, and his mind fell into emptiness. Chapter 1296. Several hours later, Lu Ming opened his eyes. At this time, Lu Ming's eyes had regained their clarity. The killing intent in his eyes had completely disappeared, leaving only indifference and calmness. Around him, those people were still attacking Lu Ming. Lu Ming took a step forward, his true essence bursting out, condensing into endless spear lights that pierced through the air. Those figures were all killed by Lu Ming's spear lights. But this time, Lu Ming's heart was unmoved. On this path filled with slaughter, he would no longer be influenced by it, turning into a killing machine. In the main hall, 2E, Gold One, and the rest smiled as they watched this scene. He passed the first trial. 2E smiled. Although he passed the first trial, the following trials will be even more difficult. Gold One sighed. Don't rush, one step at a time. 2E said. The others nodded and continued to watch. This time, Lu Ming did not stop. Endless spear lights erupted from his body. With each step, he crossed dozens of miles. Every time he took a step, everything that obstructed him turned into ashes. After an unknown period of time, the surrounding environment changed again. Lu Ming returned to the passage. Congratulations, you passed the first trial. A voice sounded in Lu Ming's mind. After that, there was no more sound. This is only the first trial. It's really difficult. Lu Ming was inwardly shocked. After entering this passage, first, endless killing intent suddenly descended, then he entered the illusion that would make him lose himself in the slaughter. Originally, Lu Ming thought that this was already the second trial. He didn't expect that this was only the first trial. The first trial was already so difficult, who knew what he would face later? Lu Ming's eyes revealed confidence and battle intent as he walked forward in large strides. The passage was very long, as if there was no end. Lu Ming walked for half an hour before the passage suddenly widened, like a stone chamber. Around the stone chamber, there were densely packed carvings, incomparably mysterious. Vaguely, there was the aura of the earth. And in front of the stone room, there was an earthen yellow light screen blocking the way. The concept of earth martial skill on the walls is the earth element art. Only those who have successfully cultivated the earth element art can break through that light curtain. Only those who have successfully comprehended the earth element art on the walls can pass through this stage. You only have half a year. The voice from before sounded in Lu Ming's mind again. Concept of earth martial skill, earth element technique. Succeed in cultivating it in half a year. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. The test this time was actually a concept of earth martial skill. Moreover, the time limit was half a year. Lu Ming had absolute confidence. Immediately, Lu Ming's gaze fell on the carvings on the wall, and he began to carefully comprehend them. In Lu Ming's eyes, those carvings seemed to have come alive. They were like small snakes that slithered on the walls, transforming into one mystical martial skill after another. Concept of earth martial skill. How wonderful! Just looking at it, Lu Ming felt that this concept of earth martial skill was incomparably wonderful and mysterious, as if it contained the principles of heaven and earth. Lu Ming had also cultivated the concept of thunder martial skill before, thunder god strike. The difficulty of cultivating thunder god strike was shockingly high. It was 100 times more difficult than ordinary martial skills. But the earth element art was much harder than thunder god strike. Lu Ming stood there, carefully observing for 3 days, but he still had no clue. No wonder, as long as one succeeded in cultivating it in half a year, the difficulty of cultivating it was too high. In the hall, Jean Yi, and the others quietly observed. I wonder if this kid can succeed in half a year. Someone said. If he really needs half a year to succeed, then there's no hope for the rest. Jean Yi said. That's right. According to past experience, the shorter the time, the greater the hope for the rest. Some people only succeed in half a year, or even 5 months. This means that their potential is limited, and they definitely won't pass the later stages. Tui sighed. In this stage, the shorter the time taken, the greater the hope for the rest. In the past, the person who used the shortest time was 3 months and 15 days, but he still didn't reach the end. In my opinion, only if he succeeds in 3 months, then there's hope for him to pass the stage. Jean Yi said. Everyone fell silent, and the atmosphere became heavy. Being able to succeed in half a year was already not bad. To do it in 3 months was too difficult. In the stone chamber, Lu Ming remained motionless, carefully perceiving the engravings around him. In Lu Ming's eyes, those engravings seemed to have turned into little people, practicing the concept of earth martial skill, earth element art. The core of a concept martial skill lies in the concept. It fully exerts the potential and power of the concept, exerting 10 or 100 times the power. Therefore, to cultivate a concept martial skill, one must start from the concept aspect. Slowly, Lu Ming closed his eyes, and those engravings disappeared. In Lu Ming's heart, there was only the concept of earth left. Slowly, the concept of earth and those engravings overlapped. Here, one couldn't rely on the Enlightenment ancient tree to comprehend. One could only rely on oneself. Time flew by quickly. 5 days, 10 days, 1 month. When 1.5 months had passed, Lu Ming suddenly moved. He stepped on the ground, and the ground rumbled. At the same time, he punched out. This punch was as heavy as a mountain and as powerful as thunder, as if it could suppress everything. It felt like the suppressing hell heaven skill. Yes, this is the feeling. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. His fists kept punching out, and the void rumbled. In the hall, Jean Yi, and the others' eyes also lit up. So fast, it's only been 1.5 months, and he's already grasped the knack. Amazing, too amazing. Although he's only grasped the knack, it's only been 1.5 months. He really has hope to succeed in 3 months. Ha ha ha, there's hope. Jean Yi, and the others spoke out excitedly, and their eyes were full of hope. They had waited for too long, and they didn't want to wait any longer. In the stone chamber, Lu Ming kept practicing, as if he would never stop. Time continued to pass. The power of Lu Ming's punches grew stronger and stronger. Heaven and earth trembled along with Lu Ming's punches. 2.5 months had passed. Boom! Lu Ming punched out, and the earth concept burst out along with the power of the fist. It was extremely powerful. Earth element technique, this was the earth element technique. Lu Ming had succeeded in cultivating it. Although it was also a concept martial technique, the earth element technique's level was obviously higher than the thunder god strike, and its power was also stronger. Although it was only at the first level, its power was equivalent to the second level of the thunder god strike. 2.5 months, I don't know what level it is. I'll think about it after I pass this stage. Lu Ming mumbled. He then stepped forward and came to the front of the khaki-colored light curtain. He threw a punch at it. Crack! The khaki-colored light curtain shattered like glass, turning into light spots and dissipating. Lu Ming stepped forward and continued to move forward. Chapter 1297. It was almost the same as the stone room from before. The stone room's walls were filled with carvings. The only difference was that these carvings were filled with the aura of the concept of fire. In front of him, there was also a fiery red light screen blocking his path. On the walls here is the concept of fire martial skill, the fire origin art. Only by successfully cultivating the fire origin art within half a year can you break through the light screen and step into the next stage. That voice sounded in Lu Ming's mind again. This time, it's the concept of fire martial skill, the fire origin art. Could it be that it's based on the concepts I've comprehended? I've comprehended 5 types of concepts, so do I have to cultivate 5 types of concept martial skills? Lu Ming guessed in his heart. His gaze looked at the light screen, then he walked over, circulated the earth origin art and punched it. After the violent fist energy hit it, the light screen remained motionless, not even a ripple appeared. Then, Lu Ming changed to the thunder god strike, hell suppressing heaven skill, 9 dragons ascending heaven steps, etc., but they were all useless. The light screen didn't even have a ripple. Tricks were indeed useless. He still needed to comprehend the fire origin art to pass. Lu Ming didn't think too much and started to observe the carvings to comprehend the fire origin art. With the previous experience, Lu Ming quickly entered the state. The fire origin art was also more powerful than the thunder god strike, but the difficulty of cultivating it was also terrifying. Lu Ming carefully comprehended. Time flew by. 2 months and 12 days later, Lu Ming's body was bathed in flames, like a fire god. With a casual strike, the power of the concept of fire exploded to the extreme, displaying a terrifying power. He had successfully cultivated the fire origin art. Success, he succeeded again, ha ha ha. It's still within 3 months. This time, he only used 2 months and 12 days, saving 3 days compared to the earth origin art. There's hope this time. This Lu Ming's comprehension is too strong. There's really hope this time. In the hall, 2E, Goldie, and the others cheered excitedly. In the past, the fastest person to successfully cultivate a concept martial skill took 3.5 months. However, Lu Ming had only used 2.5 months for the first class, and he had even saved 3 days for the second class, surpassing all the others in the past. The shorter the time taken, the greater the potential. Only then would one have a chance to pass the last stage. Boom! Lu Ming pointed his finger and used the fire element spell. The fire mentality condensed on his fingertip and touched the fiery red light screen. The light screen shattered and disappeared. Lu Ming smiled faintly and continued to step forward. Sure enough, as Lu Ming expected, it didn't take long for them to arrive at another stone chamber. There were also carvings on the walls of the stone room. At the end of the stone room, there was also a light screen. This time, he needed to comprehend the concept of wind, the wind origin technique. Lu Ming didn't want to waste any time. He immediately entered the state and began to comprehend. This time, the time Lu Ming used was shortened by 2 days. He only used 2 months and 10 days to successfully comprehend the wind origin technique and pass this stage. Not long after, he arrived at the next stage. This time, it was the concept of water, the water origin technique. This time, the time was shortened by 2 days. He only used 2 months and 8 days to successfully cultivate and pass this stage. After that, he arrived at the 5th stage. He needed to cultivate the concept of thunder, the lightning origin technique. Compared to Lu Ming, the thunder elemental skill was simpler. This was because Lu Ming had cultivated the thunder god strike before. He had more experience in cultivating the thunder concept martial technique. Hence, it was easier for him to cultivate it. In the end, Lu Ming only used 2 months to successfully cultivate the lightning origin technique and pass this stage. Congratulations on passing the 2nd stage. When Lu Ming passed through the 5th light screen, a voice sounded in Lu Ming's mind. From start to finish, Lu Ming used less than a year to pass the 2nd stage and cultivate 5 powerful concept martial skills. I've really profited. Even if I don't get the primal chaos scripture this time, I've still profited. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. These 5 concept martial skills were priceless in the outside world. They couldn't be compared to a concept martial skill like the Thunder God Strike. Each of them was an elite concept martial skill. If Lu Ming could cultivate these 5 concept martial skills to the highest level, his battle strength would skyrocket. Let's continue. I must get the primal chaos scripture. Lu Ming clenched his fists tightly. It was just a trial. If he could obtain 5 such wondrous concept martial skills, then the primal chaos scripture would definitely be amazing. Lu Ming's heart burned with passion. He continued to move forward. Soon, the light in front of him lit up. Lu Ming arrived at a battle stage. The battle stage was huge, more than 100 miles wide. Is the battle stage a test of battle strength? Lu Ming raised his eyebrows. Buzz! 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 When Lu Ming stepped onto the battle stage, 5 figures suddenly appeared in front of Lu Ming. These 5 figures were all tall and burly men, but their skin color was different. There was yellow, green, blue, and fiery red. They were very similar to 2E that Lu Ming had seen before. They seemed to be puppets. In the last stage, use the earth element technique, thunder element technique, fire element technique, water element technique, and wind element technique to defeat the 5 puppets. Other martial skills will be ineffective. The time limit is 2 years. A voice sounded in Lu Ming's mind. In the last stage, he only needed to defeat the 5 puppets within 2 years. Lu Ming had just thought of this. Whoosh! One of the 5 figures pounced on Lu Ming. This figure was yellow in color and used the earth element technique. It punched at Lu Ming. The earth element technique filled the air and a strong pressure acted on Lu Ming. This puppet's cultivation wasn't any weaker than Lu Ming's. With the earth element technique, it was terrifyingly powerful. Boom! Lu Ming's true essence exploded and the earth element technique filled the air. He used the earth element technique and punched at the puppet. When the 2 fists collided, Lu Ming felt an overwhelming force rushing toward him. Lu Ming's body trembled and he couldn't help but retreat. Its mastery of the earth element technique is far above mine. Lu Ming's eyes sharpened. Bang! The yellow puppet stepped onto the battle stage and charged at Lu Ming. Its fist was as heavy as a mountain and as heavy as the earth. I can't defeat it. Lu Ming thought. In a situation where they had the same strength, Lu Ming's earth element technique wasn't as good as his opponent's. He wasn't its opponent at all. As for other martial skills, they would be ineffective. Roar! 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 Dragon roars sounded from Lu Ming's body as the 9 dragon energies exploded. Lu Ming's strength increased tremendously as the dragon energies exploded. He used the earth element technique and punched out. But in the next moment, Lu Ming's expression changed. Chapter 1298. Pang! The 2 fists collided, but Lu Ming was still pushed back. Bloodline! Lu Ming's heart stirred and the 3rd bloodline appeared. A gush of energy surged into Lu Ming's body, increasing his strength once again. However, as Lu Ming's strength increased, the power of the khaki-colored puppet would also increase. Then, Lu Ming used the suppressing Hell Heaven skill to increase its power. Correspondingly, the puppet's strength also increased rapidly. It was useless. No matter how Lu Ming increased his strength, the puppet's strength would increase as well. It's useless. In the end, we have to fight using Intent Realm martial skills. Lu Ming sighed and withdrew his bloodline and dragon power. As expected, the puppet's strength also weakened. Its basic strength was always on the same level as Lu Ming's. Then let's fight using Intent Realm martial skills. Lu Ming only used his True Yuan and Earth Element technique to fight against the puppet. Unfortunately, the puppet's Intent Realm martial skill was above Lu Ming's. Lu Ming tried his best to resist, but he was still no match. In less than 10 moves, he was knocked off the stage. The puppet stopped attacking as soon as Lu Ming left the stage. Looks like this stage is going to be very difficult. Right now, only one khaki-colored puppet has taken action. There are still 4 others who haven't taken action yet. I wonder if the other 5 puppets will join forces. If they do, the difficulty will be even more terrifying. No wonder it took 2 years. Lu Ming thought quickly. It seems that I have to quickly improve my Intent Realm martial skills to pass this stage. Then, let's continue fighting. Lu Ming's eyes were filled with fighting spirit. He stepped forward and returned to the stage. The puppet's Intent Realm martial skill was exactly the same as his. Continuous fighting would be of great help to Lu Ming in comprehending Intent Realm martial skills. Shwa! This time, it was no longer the puppet that attacked, but a fiery red puppet. It used the fire element technique, which was full of explosive power. Lu Ming also used his fire elemental technique to fight. The other party's mastery of fire elemental arts was clearly above Lu Ming's. Even if Lu Ming did his best, it would still be difficult for him to resist. How ingenious! I didn't know that the fire elemental technique could be used like this. While fighting, Lu Ming tried to sense the fire elemental technique that his opponent was using. At the same time, he also tried to verify it with his own cultivation and improve his understanding of the fire elemental technique. After more than 10 moves, Lu Ming was knocked off the fighting ring. However, Lu Ming was not discouraged. He continued to climb onto the platform. This time, it was a green puppet that attacked. It used the wind origin technique. Just like that, once Lu Ming was knocked off the battle stage, he would immediately get back on the battle stage and fight with his opponents. While fighting, he was also comprehending the poetic conception of martial arts. His progress was extremely fast. Every time, only when Lu Ming's true essence was exhausted would he stop and swallow the ores to replenish his true essence. Time flew by in a blink of an eye. 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, in the blink of an eye, half a year had passed. In this half a year, apart from recovering his true essence, Lu Ming was also fighting with the 5 puppets. His comprehension of the 5 poetic conception of martial arts had increased by leaps and bounds. Lu Ming had achieved a major breakthrough in all 5 poetic conception of martial arts. He had stepped into the 3rd level, and his power had increased greatly. Boom! Lu Ming used the Earth Origin technique to fight with the khaki puppet. Lu Ming's fist energy was powerful and heavy. The Earth Origin technique was integrated into it. Every punch was like the earth itself was suppressing the opponent. Its power was extremely shocking. When the 2 fists collided, the khaki puppet's body flew far away and fell on the edge of the fighting ring. Get down! Lu Ming rushed towards the khaki puppet. Shwa! However, at this moment, a green figure flashed. The green puppet pounced on Lu Ming like lightning. It waved its hand and the wind origin technique cut open the space and slashed towards Lu Ming. At the same time, a blazing aura filled the air. The fiery red figure also pounced on Lu Ming. Then, it was the blue puppet and the purple puppet. The khaki puppet also stood up. The 5 puppets pounced on Lu Ming together. Sure enough, as Lu Ming had guessed, the 5 puppets had joined forces. The 5 puppets' power was amazing. Lu Ming was constantly pushed back. The key was that when Lu Ming used one of the poetic conception of martial arts, he would be restrained by the corresponding puppet. It would be difficult for him to use his full power. Lu Ming could only constantly change his poetic conception of martial arts. He used the 5 poetic conception of martial arts in turn to block the opponent's attacks. However, it took time to change the 5 poetic conception of martial arts. Even if it was only for a moment, it was still a flaw. Lu Ming was pushed back again and again. After a few moves, he was knocked off the fighting ring. The 5 puppets joining forces is too strong. It's flawless. I'm not their match at all when I use only one poetic conception of martial arts. If I can perfectly change the 5 poetic conception of martial arts, there might be hope. Lu Ming thought for a while and then stepped onto the fighting ring. As soon as he stepped onto the fighting ring, the 5 puppets pounced on Lu Ming. Lu Ming could only try his best to change the 5 poetic conception of martial arts to fight the 5 puppets. In the beginning, Lu Ming was completely defeated. Because there was always a gap between the 5 poetic conception of martial arts. If it wasn't perfect, the opponent would seize the gap and defeat him. However, as time passed, Lu Ming became more and more proficient in switching between the 5 types of martial techniques. A few months later, Lu Ming could easily achieve a perfect switch. He could cast any martial technique with ease. He could even cast different martial techniques with his left and right hands. At this point, Lu Ming finally managed to block the attacks of the 5 puppets. Merge! But at this time, the yellow puppet said indifferently. Then, the 5 puppets' figures changed, and the 5 poetic conception of martial arts blasted out. They merged together, forming a chaotic color that blasted towards Lu Ming. The 5 poetic conception of martial arts actually merged together, and the power increased crazily. In just one move, Lu Ming was sent flying out of the fighting ring. No way, it can be played like this. Lu Ming shouted in his heart. The difficulty of this stage was too high. The 5 puppets' methods were endless, and they were getting more and more powerful. Now, the 5 poetic conception of martial arts could actually be merged together. Merge? Right, merge. Lu Ming's eyes suddenly lit up. Was this the prerequisite to cultivate the chaotic conception? Only by merging the 5 poetic conception of martial arts could one be qualified to cultivate the chaotic conception. Lu Ming couldn't help but guess. These stages were not only a test, but also a training. Only those who could break through under such training could walk to the end and successfully cultivate the chaotic conception. The chaotic conception was the emperor of all conceptions in the world. Its power was absolutely terrifying, but it wasn't hard to imagine that the difficulty of cultivating it was also absolutely terrifying. The conditions to cultivate it were also extremely harsh. It wasn't something that anyone could cultivate successfully. Only when certain conditions were met could one succeed. And the tests along the way were very likely to prepare for cultivating the chaotic conception. If he couldn't pass all the tests along the way, then he wouldn't be qualified to cultivate the chaos scripture, and it would be impossible to cultivate the chaotic conception. Thinking of this, Lu Ming's eyes were filled with fighting spirit again. Come, I don't believe that I can't merge the 5 poetic conception of martial arts.